Imagine if someone handed you what appeared to be a crude, ornate rifle, something that looks like it was forged in a monastery workshop, but when you pulled the trigger, it unleashed the devastating power of a Browning 50 cal, the explosive force of a howitzer shell, and the precision guidance of a Hellfire missile, all in a single handheld weapon. Welcome to the Bolter, Warhammer 40k's most deceptive weapon. In the grim darkness of the far future, humanity's greatest warriors carry what appears to be brutally simple weapons. The iconic bolter looks like something a medieval blacksmith might forge after a fever dream. All Gothic arches, skull motifs, and an industrial brutalism that screams, "I was made in a monastery forged by candlelight." But here's a cosmic joke. Beneath this deliberately primitive exterior lies technology so sophisticated, it'd make the engineers at NASA, Boeing, and Lockheed Martin collectively weep with inadequacy and probably commit seppuku, right? It's like discovering what your grandfather's wooden fishing rod is actually a quantum computer disguised as driftwood. Think of it this way. If our most advanced modern weapons are like Formula One race cars, sleek and obviously high-tech, then the bolter is like a horse-drawn carriage that can break the sound barrier, all right? The deception is so complete that even we, the audience, often forget we're looking at what may be the most sophisticated personal weapon ever conceived in science fiction. Today, we're going to dissect the bolter, round by round, force by force, to reveal the staggering engineering and marvel hiding behind the Imperium's deliberate aesthetic of regression. Because when you dig into the actual physics of what a bolter does, you realize that humanity's simple weapons represent the pinnacle of material science, propulsion engineering, and ballistic tech, wrapped in a Gothic lie that fools everyone, including its enemies and us. Let's start with the ammunition itself, all right? Because calling it a bolter round is kind of like calling the space shuttle a paper airplane. A standard Astartes .75 caliber round isn't just ammunition. It's a miniaturized space program packed into a package smaller than your thumb. The length is about 100 millimeters, 3 to 4 inches, which is huge for small arms. Its mass is about 125 grams. That's what I did for the math. And the diameter is 19.05 millimeters, which is a 3/4 of an inch, .75 caliber. It's got an explosive payload of mass reactive armor piercing tip with timed explosive core. All right, to put that in perspective, imagine if you took a 50 cal bullet, already a monster round, those can punch through engine blocks and walls, and you said, this needs to be 50% wider and 3 times heavier. But it also needs to be smarter than a smartphone. All right? Modern 50 cal rounds weigh like 45 grams, 9 to 9 millimeters long. The bolter round is nearly 3 times the mass. All right? It's like trying to cram a bowling ball's worth of matter and mass into a tennis ball. And you're also making it fly straighter and hit harder. The multi-stage propulsion system gets pretty insane. Each bolter contains not 1, not 2, but 3 separate propulsion stages. It's like strapping a rocket to a bullet and then strapping another rocket to that rocket. And then adding a tiny computer brain to steer the whole thing, the very tip. It's got 3 charges. Sorry, not 3 charges. My bad. It's got like three stages. The initial stage is the primary charge, is what allows it to like be blasted out of the barrel, right? The second one is probably like a micro solid fuel rocket, kind of what we use to shoot satellites into space, but small enough to fit in a pill. And then its guidance system, which is like what you took from a tomahawk, and you shrunk it down to the size of a Tic Tac and hardened it to survive what would liquefy every one of us. And think about that. They're taking a projectile that contains more computing power than the Apollo missions, more explosive force than a hand grenade, and more precision than a Swiss watchmaker, right? You're putting that all into a marker pen. To understand how pretty impossible that is for us. That's it's like shooting a smartphone out of a cannon, having go faster than a fighter jet, steering itself, and then explodes with perfect timing, and it never fails. That's what every bolter round does. So, it's guided with a missile. It's like made like a paper clip, right? Because there's so many of them, and it's just that reliable. It's as reliable as a paper clip. How can a paper clip do it wrong? You know, each one probably has like 2 billion transistors. Because if it has the same computing power as a phone, that's how much transistors are in a phone. And it needs to, like I said, it needs to survive that. That's 50,000 Gs. So that's turning anything that we know into powder. And being able to maintain that like atomic precision like they have for clocks. So if let's look at the numbers for these forces. They're staggering. For a bolter round to achieve its stated performance, which is about 1,400 meters a second, right? For 125 gram projectile, it would have to, the chamber pressure must reach it. Minimum 95,000 psi. 95,000. So your blood is 2.3 psi. That's like blowing on your hand, right? A car tire pressure is around 32. So that'd be like a gentle handshake. Pressure washers 3,000. Most modern firearms are 35 to 65,000 psi. All right, and then a tank is 70,000. Right, like an Abrams. This is 95,000 psi, is what this is, and that's like having the Empire State Building bounce on you and step on you, essentially, which is crazy. And if you're trying to contain that explosion, it's about the size of a toilet paper tube, right? Like think about how, like the thickness of the metal, I was pretty liberal with it. So say you're shooting something that's 95,000 psi, okay? Like a freaking howitzer. And you're going to have to deal with recoil. So this is where physics is going to try and bite you in the ass with this gun. So for momentum transfer, because you're having 125 grams, 1,400 meters a second, that's 175 Newton seconds, which is 4,900 joules. Okay? It's like if somebody hit you full force with a sledgehammer, right? It essentially, I mean, like that's not even that enough, because all the force would have to be focused in a very small spot. But, I mean, they're also firing them automatically. So the fact that they can do that, their power armor's got to be crazy. And I talk about that later. The ceramite and the power armor is another impossible feat. All right? And with shooting it automatic, it's going to be a lot of energy in terms of like heat and how it's going to dissipate. Each shot is like 2,000 watts of thermal energy. If it's going 600 rounds a minute, 10 rounds a second, that's 20,000 watts of heat. That's like a 1,000 hair dryers running at once. Okay? That's insane. You're going to be looking at like how to control that, right? So the barrel, it has to contain all of those pressures. And you can figure that out using the hoop stress in thick-walled, the formula for hoop stress in thick-walled cylinders. And that's, P times R squared divided by R squared minus R squared. And there's big and little r. But this yields 52,000 psi on the barrel walls with every shot. If you're thinking about it, it's exploding outwards inside of the barrel, but it's going to have to contain itself so it doesn't explode each time it gets shot. You know, so the outside and the inside are both having pressures on them, being exhibited, being walled. But it's not just occasional, right? It's sustained burst or like automatic, and they're in combat for days, weeks maybe. So it's like you have to think that you're having like a Formula One or a NASCAR running it red line for weeks, and it doesn't break ever. So that's just another aspect that is just adds to it. I've never seen them change a barrel or heard them do that. And to make all this, you just don't have those materials. They don't exist. We're talking about like substances that you really would have to question everything we know. They have to be able to. The tensile strength has to survive a minimum of 200,000 psi. 1380 megapascals. It has to survive at least 50,000 firing cycles. It has to survive at least 800 degrees Celsius. The corrosion resistance, like the only thing I could ever come up with is that because the pressures are so high, and maybe the exhaust gases from the rockets are high carbon, and it creates micro layers of diamond. I mean, that's the only thing I could come up with, that it's like self-cleaning or something like that. But it's just it's insane. Like, we have metals, right, that can survive 300,000 psi, but they're super brittle, right? And it's not going to work for repeated use. And so it'd have to combine like everything of every metal together into one thing. And like I said, you're talking about the electronics too. If we're going to talk about metals that have to survive that, you have to have electronics that survive 50,000 Gs, smaller than a pencil eraser, and they function flawlessly. So we can barely make electronics that survive being dropped from our pocket. So I don't think that that's ever going to be fixed. For the propellant, right? It's got to burn completely in a 600 millimeter barrel. It's got to generate enough gas pressure to accelerate 125 grams to 1,400 meters a second and burn clean enough not to foul the barrel, remain stable for decades in storage. It's like it's designed a rocket fuel that burns with the intensity of a space shuttle launch, but in a space the size of a pill bottle. It has to work perfectly every single time for thousands of years. It's got to maintain integrity through explosive deceleration upon impact, survive the transition from 1,400 meters a second to 0 in milliseconds. And it's got to deliver the payload precisely the right moment. I don't see that. Like, once I was going through this, it's just like, yeah, this is for sure science fiction, right? But hopefully one day we can have them. Sorry, it just blows my mind to be able to take in all those billions of data points for processing targets in real life and gathering all that data in real time is just like crazy. Because you also have to factor in these are space marines. These are on different planets, right? They're on different environments. They're in different settings each time, and these bullets have to factor in all of this information each time and behave accordingly each time. That's another thing that people I don't think about. I didn't even want to get into like how it's even gonna move itself while it's traveling. Maybe fins that protrude out, something like that. But that's just another level that I didn't want to get into because there's so much more. Because we're talking about how how it gets so hot when it's shooting. There's no cooling system. There's nothing on there to tell it or to get it to cool. I've never seen a heat sink. They don't have water cooling like World War I or II. Okay, it's just works, and that would melt most other metals, honestly, or at least they'd be glowing. And not lastly, but getting close to it, I think that how they look too is very deliberate, even though it's like they're very old, STCs or whatever. Like the way they look impacts it in how it hasn't changed since they were created. And if you think about like how they are created, you have to have precision that rivals like more so than pharmaceutical companies, right? In terms of tolerances, it's the manufacturing tolerances are tighter than anything we could achieve today. Like TSMC would be weeping. It doesn't make sense. You'd have to have like plus or minus 0.001 millimeters over a 600 millimeter length chamber for and this is just because, at least for like the barrels and stuff, like it has to be consistent because it needs to be able to hold that pressure, right? And also not foul after use. And you're also gonna have to create electronics repeatedly, right? These are, like I said, the only way these could work is if they were materialized. But I mean, they make 500 billion probably. Let's just say the Imperium makes 500 billion of them a year across a million worlds, 50 million bolters per year to arm their forces. Replacement parts probably in the trillions. Okay, 500 billion rounds per year means 15,850 rounds manufactured every second. In each round requiring precision manufacturing that exceeds our current capabilities. It's like having a million TSMCs that are 10 times better than they are. It working 24/7. And each one is like is the most complex thing we've ever made. Okay, they have to be perfect. They're explosives. You can't be messing around with explosives. You need certificates. And so, like, the STCs that made them, right, the blueprints that the standard template construct is like a recipe book, right? And so that's what makes me think that maybe they are manufactured. But I do think that the fact that they're created so well, and so many of them, I think they're in a way printed, maybe, atomically. But like I was saying earlier, the look of them, I think it's a deliberate primitive look. It's not, but it isn't just a preference. It's on purpose. That you underestimate people. When an enemy sees a Space Marine carrying a bolter, they're probably first going to think, oh, it's crude, right? It's primitive, monkey or whatever. But then you realize that it's really not. It's a misdirection, as well as with like the ornate decorations, the Gothic design, because it's all kind of contradictory. But then you see skulls, and so you can tell. But I do think that a lot of times, especially in the Warhammer universe, enemies focus a lot on aesthetics rather than capabilities. Like, think about the in what book? In Fulgrim, I think when they meet the aliens that have the solar collectors, they saw humans in a specific way, they themselves being human, but is like a primitive, scary kind of war people, but they underestimated them because of that, right? So that's kind of like where I'm thinking it is. But like when you start shooting, it really doesn't act like that. They're more powerful, more accurate, probably more advanced than most things most people have. Even the Eldar, I'd say. Eldar just shoot needles and stuff. But I think it's like a psychological impact. Especially they're so loud too. And for a lot of like advanced aliens, maybe they'd think they're technologically superior. And they find themselves outgunned by something that looks medieval. And so I think that would create a psychological effect, because you just see these primitive looking guys that are just beating your ass down. And so I think the Bolter's design philosophy extends beyond individual weapons to their entire doctrine. So enemies who underestimate Imperial technology based on its appearance consistently make strategic errors. And underestimating Imperial firepower, overconfidence in their military advantages, misallocation of resources based on perceived threats, tactical decisions based on false assumptions. There's something particularly demoralizing about being outfought by an enemy whose equipment looks like it belongs in a museum. It's the psychological impact extends beyond the battlefield, I think. That's why a lot of the humans of the Imperium do join. But it's more than just a weapon. It's like the entire philosophy of warfare that the Imperium has perfected. And I think that that's a really good art design aspect as well, how they're able to perceive that. It has mastered the art of technological camouflage. By wrapping the most advanced systems in deliberately archaic aesthetics, they've crafted a military doctrine based on strategic misdirection. Land raiders look like armored cathedrals, perform like main battle tanks from the far future. Power armor appears medieval, provides protection beyond modern capability. Chain swords, they seem primitive. They cut through materials that would stop plasma torches. Bolters look crude, outperform weapons from civilizations thousands of years more advanced. This design philosophy provides multiple evolutionary advantages in a galaxy full of hostile civilizations. Enemies can't easily reverse engineer what they don't understand. The Imperium has learned that the most dangerous weapon is the one that your enemy doesn't recognize as a threat. It's strategic thinking on a scale that spans millennia. Civilizations rise and fall, technologies advance. Regardless, tactics evolve and adapt, but the fundamental deception remains effective. The most sophisticated military in the galaxy deliberately makes itself look the most primitive. It's a joke. It's been running for 400 centuries, and it's still fooling people. Creates a situation where the most advanced becomes the most underestimated, the most capable appears the most crude, the most dangerous looks the most simple, the most sophisticated masquerades as the most primitive. The bolter represents perhaps the most sophisticated deception in science fiction. By wrapping itself in impossibly advanced technology and the aesthetics of an industrial regression, Warhammer 40k has created a weapon that appears primitive while being demonstrably superior to anything our current civilization could produce. The numbers don't lie. Chamber pressures that would destroy modern weapons, materials stronger than anything in our current arsenal, manufacturing tolerances tighter than aerospace standards, integration of guidance systems more complex than cruise missiles, all packaged in a form factor that suggests medieval craftsmanship. This is the genius of the Imperium's design philosophy. By making their most advanced technology look crude and simple, they've created weapons that enemies consistently underestimate until it's too late. It's deception elevated to an art form, and it's been working for 40,000 years. Next time you see a Space Marine hefting what appears to be a simple, brutish weapon, remember you're looking at technology so advanced that our entire civilization couldn't manufacture a single component of it. That's not regression. That's sophistication through deliberate simplification. And in the grim darkness of the far future, that deception might just be humanity's greatest strength. Because the most dangerous enemy is the one you never see coming, and the most effective weapon is the one you mistake for a tool. In the end, the bolter is a mirror reflecting our own assumptions about progress, technology, and civilization. Sometimes the most advanced path forward looks exactly like a deliberate step back.